Genshin Impact is killing its characters. Now, maybe not literally yet, but the way that it is using them makes them completely irrelevant to us, the players, as soon as they have stopped being a part of the Archon quest. Characters are the lifeblood of Genshin, quite literally. That's how they make money. They have us want these characters, and then if we haven't got the Primo Gems to be able to wish for them, we go and we do a little bit of splurging. Maybe a lot of splurging in the case of some rich people or people with very poor self-control. And we make it so that we can wish for these characters who look so cool and shiny and new and so perfect to put on our teams. And you know what? It works. It works. You know, we get super psyched for these characters. And they come along and oh yeah. Oh, they look so cool. Oh, they look so cool. But then Genshin just drops them. And it treats them badly. And it does this in two main ways. Genshin currently has 69 characters on its roster. That is going to turn into 78 once we have all the characters that were shown in the Fontaine trailer. Now, we all know that there's going to be more characters that come out of Fontaine. There's going to be more characters that come out of the previous nations. There's going to be characters that come out of Northland. By the time that we finish this game, there's going to be over 100 characters. And for a game that is asking us to care about characters, not only because it's their financial model, but because Genshin is such a story-driven, character-driven game, man, it treats them poorly. Now, the first way that it treats them poorly, of my two ways, is these limited time events. These characters who have so much that gets hidden behind limited time events. It makes it so that new players don't have access to this information unless they go and they find out when they're supposed to watch a playthrough of this event. But you know what? If I was a new player, I think I would just skip that, because that's a lot of work. That feels like the game is punishing me for not being a player from the very beginning. And so guess what? Albedo, who is this character who's very tied up to Conria, and Conria is the thread that we have been following throughout all the nations. It is extremely important. And yet Albedo, with his huge connection to Conria, with his master being credited with the fall of Conria, has so much characterization hidden behind two limited time events. The second of which is when he actually confirms with the Traveler that he is a homunculus and that his master created both the dead dragon they're standing on and himself. I mean, the whole Suspedo thing. That was so much characterization, so much that we learned about Albedo, and yet people who are new to the game are never going to get that. So what they need to do this, is, you know what, the limited event can still happen. We can still get the mini games. I mean, that's where we get the prizes from, is from the mini games. So, you know, leave that stuff, you know, the mini games, the prizes, all that stuff. But then put the story into the Genshin timeline. Allow anyone who is new to the game to play it. Like, there are so many characters who would benefit from limited time events not being limited time stories. Zhao would benefit a lot from this. Rosaria was introduced in a limited time event, as was Yelan. Any of these characters who are introduced in limited time events are just greatly disserviced by the fact that anyone who is new to the game is going to really not be able to care about them as much because their story is locked away. And it's a huge shame because some of these characters are amazing and some of them have really great stories hidden behind those limited time events. Or have, just all this extra information that we wouldn't get unless they were included in this event. But too bad, you missed it. So, you know what? Why don't they actually make this story available for people so that everybody can care about them? I mean, if you're asking people to buy Primogems, to buy, Genesis crystals to turn into Primogems because you care about the characters, why are you making it impossible for them to care about the characters? Okay, that's striking limited time events off my list. Here's the other way they're killing their characters. They're not making them part of the world. Several ways. First of all, we have the teapots. We're able to put characters in there. There's actually quite lengthy conversations where you can have whole conversation trees, and, it's quite extensive. All of Sumeru, you can run around and read their minds with Nahida. So what is stopping them from taking these characters and just putting them in a place that makes sense? Put Tainari in Pardistai with Karkata. Have Kale in Gandharvaville. Miko can be at the shrine. It isn't that hard to come up with places that you might be able to put these characters. And then just let us interact with them, We go up to them, we just morph into our traveler form, and we can just have a little conversation. And it doesn't have to change every time. It can be the same conversation every time, or, it can cycle through a few conversations. It doesn't have to be intensive. Maybe it would be fun if they changed where they are every once in a while. Maybe with each update, the character changes where they are. That'd be fun. But just make it so that they're a part of the world. And this will especially help characters who are introduced not part of the Archon quests. I can come up with an easy 4-star and a 5-star example. For the 4-star, Heizo is mentioned by the detective company, but, he isn't introduced and he isn't part of the Archon quest. And because of that, if he didn't exist as a character, we really wouldn't miss him. Which is a really bad thing to say, but I think you can understand that we wouldn't have this gaping hole where it's like, and where's the little smarty detective who should be here? Definitely feels like we should have that guy here. I don't think any of us would be saying that. Another example is Ayato. Unfortunately, he's very fun to play, but Ayaka could have easily been an only child. I mean, Ayato got introduced so late in the game, way after the Archon quests, that if he didn't exist, we really wouldn't be missing him. There are plenty of characters who are like that, unfortunately. We really would not have this gaping hole of, where is this character? It feels like we're missing someone. So if you aren't part of the Archon quest, sometimes even if you are part of the Archon quest, your part just isn't significant enough to be able to say, wow, where are they? We're really missing them. I could probably get 20 characters off this list if I just went through and got rid of the ones who really we wouldn't miss if they were gone. That we wouldn't miss if they had never existed. I don't feel suicidal enough to want to do that, but I could. And then beyond just making these characters a part of the world so that you can interact with them, so that you can, just make them feel fuller, so that the world feels like it still has them in it. Like it feels so silly that you take 16 characters or less if you happen to be like doubling a character in your teams. You have basically 16 characters that you can care about at a time in your 4 teams, and the other ones just might as well just not exist. Unless we get them in a limited time event, and we know what that problem is already. So just, make them hang out in a place that makes sense. And then we can find them, we can talk to them, we can, check out what's happening in their lives lately. And I think would just make the world so much more exciting and, fun. You can just go visit your favorites and see how they're doing. And it would be really cool. It would be really cool, and I think Genshin should do it, and I don't think they will. But populating the world with their own characters would be good. And the next thing that they need to do, in part of populating the world with the characters, change the 5-star story character quests into world quests. Because we get so many of these quests that introduce a cool concept, a place where you can resurrect a loved one. The whole thing with Taj and his son who committed suicide in prison, that was dark. But you know what? That quest did not tell us anything more about Sino. He takes his job very seriously, is good at it, but also has a little bit of a soft side. We knew that already. We knew that from the Archon quest. Al-Haytham, he's observant and he's very smart. I knew that already. But if we're talking about Sino, so it's like, make that into a world quest that we can go do this. But then Sino just happens to come along. We have to stop the hive mind, but Al-Haytham just happens to be coming along. And then, you know what, that also included Sino. That would have 2 characters that would then exist in the world for us because we're doing a world quest. Because so often they give us world quests and then they give us an NPC that, sometimes ends up being more fleshed out than the 5-star character. I feel like I know more about Jet after the amount of time we have spent doing world quests with her than I know about Nilou. Because what did I learn about Nilou in her character quest? That she's really nice and she cares about people. And is part of the theater. I don't feel like I got to know anything more about her. There are so many characters that would benefit from just making their quest a world quest and then letting them become involved and then letting them become involved in other quests, Just, there's this random world quest, but guess what? Like Shenhe, because we barely ever see her, is gonna come along. And that would be great. That'd be great. She could just be part of the story. And they don't have to make it a big role. We can just, even just run into her and she comes with us to go find, her master. It's just, or there's something to do with, there's something to do with, kind of the technology that Tighnari was messing with in his character quest. And so, you go with Kale, to, go find Tighnari, and then Tighnari can be like, oh yes, go do this, and then you go do whatever Tighnari told you to do. It doesn't have to be a big part, but they can just be a part of the stories that you start doing, the quests that you start doing, because they're a part of the world. And then, of course, in some of them, they are going to play a larger part because it is their story quest. But honestly, what did I learn about Miko? That she's got a bit of a sadistic side and is in the publishing industry. didn't really learn much. But, you know, if she was just, you know, there at the shrine, and anytime that there was something going on with the shrine, then, you know, Miko might, you know, be helping you out, or whatever it is. Just make these characters part of the world. And then if you have stuff like hangout events, like, I would do hangout events instead of these character quests. Because if we change the character quests into world quests, make the characters people that you can run into every day and actually interact with, then you can change their, you know, what used to be their character quest into more of a hangout, so that you can find out more about them that is actually, you know, interesting and new. You know, and again, like, I'm gonna take Sino as an example, because it was like, hello, why did we learn that he's just really good at his job when we know all this other stuff about him? I would like to know more about, like, how he ended up having a god inside of him. I would like to learn a little bit more about this whole human experimentation thing, you know, like being taken away from your home by the academia until Professor Cyrus stops the whole human experimentation thing and, you know, takes you in. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And because the hangouts are so dialogue heavy, I feel like that would be the chance to actually learn so much more about the characters, rather than these ridiculous quests that just tell us exactly what we already knew about them. You know, I mean, there are so many characters that it's like, I wish that, you know, there was just, you know, that extra content. And because the hangouts always have the, you know, the several options, you know, so that you can end up, like, learning a lot about them in some of them, it would just be very nice if you were able to find out more about, you know, if you're hanging out with a child. I want to find out more about what it was like. Because they say, you know, he actually fell into the abyss. I would like to know more about that. I'd like to hang out with Ganya, because I'm tired of hearing about how she's, you know, half illuminated based and thinks she's fat. I would like to hear more about her part in the Archon Wars. You know, and what was it about, like, choosing to become a secretary that all of a sudden caused her to get her vision? You know, I feel like there's so many characters that if we were able to ask these questions, you know, Kale obviously has this huge thing with her past with Dotori and everything that happened to her, that if you haven't read the webcomic, you're not going to know about. So, you know, I would love to have more hangout events with these characters, so that we can actually have these dialogue heavy conversations. And you know what? I know that that's not all people's things. Not all people care about the characters. But I do. And Genshin wants us to. And so, you know, if I'm able to have a conversation, you know, I know that a couple of people that I talked to after the Windbloom 2.0 event, and Sino was being a goof, you know, felt like they wanted to pull for him, even though people generally are pretty disdainful of his playstyle. They cared about the character more, so they wanted to pull for him. I mean, that's the way to get people invested. That's the way to get them pulling. Even random people who don't have tons of money to pull for these characters, it's like when you make them more invested because you go deeper, that's how you're going to get them to pull. But instead what they're doing is they just make them shiny and new, and they drop them and they say, pull for this character, it's really important that you do. And, then they disappear from the world. We don't see them outside of the Archon quests, or their probably repetitive story quests, or maybe a limited time event, if we're lucky. If you're super lucky, your fave might show up in a limited time event. But I don't think that any of that is going to happen. Genshin is not going to change the way that it's doing things. It's just going to continue treating its characters just completely... They're just completely disposable. The moment that they've gotten people to wish for them, they can just toss them aside and not care about them anymore. Like, they just don't matter anymore. As soon as people have wished for them, they're just gone. And then they'll bring an event, and then they'll make them wishable again and hope that, this limited time event will make you care about them. But you know what? That's not going to help the people who just start playing tomorrow. So, yes. Genshin, you are killing your characters. You are not allowing people to love them. You are smothering them. You give them to us and then you push them into the ground like they don't even exist in the world anymore. Let us interact with them in the world. Let them be part of world quests. Like, you know, what if we weren't doing the whole finding of the Eternal Oasis? Like, I liked Jet's thing. But what if what if they either made Jet a character with a vision who was pullable, or they replaced Jet with a character from the desert who would also believe in the Eternal Oasis? What if they did that with either Dea or Sino? Or Candace? Any of those three, be finding the Eternal Oasis with one of those three characters. That would be really cool. I would really like to do that. Actually, I think, I really would have actually enjoyed doing that with one of those three characters. Or other than that, barring that, give me Jet as a playable character because I feel like I know her and love her. But they won't. Even though Jet is honestly better developed than a lot of characters on this roster. They won't do that, but really they should have taken advantage of the fact that they have three characters who grew up or at least grew up partially in the desert, who could have been part of the Eternal Oasis. Hey, Jet could have even been there as a character, and you just happen to have Candace also coming along. Maybe because she feels like you need to be protected. Maybe she does believe in the Eternal Oasis as well. Something like that. It would be so easy, and yet they don't do it. And so we end up just not caring about these characters, and that's just really sad. Genshin, do better, honestly. But I don't think they're actually going to do better. So, until then, we have 69, soon to be 78, soon to be over 100 characters who are being treated so poorly in their game. It's ridiculous. Because how are we supposed to care about these characters the way that Genshin wants us to care about these characters when they just make it impossible to? We have maybe 16 characters who are on our 4 teams that we're able to care a lot about. We have more that we can more that we can, say, yeah, it's cool that we got them, but, they're just... certainly enough that it's just yeah, I like you, but I'm not going to pull for you. And then, yeah, I liked you, I pulled for you, but then they did nothing with you, so I haven't bothered to raise you, and you're never going to be on my teams, and I regret pulling you because I never use you, and they haven't done anything interesting with you. Why can't they do something interesting with you so that I love you and want to play you? They won't do that. They won't do that. So, you know what? I think we just have to resign ourselves to the fact that Genshin is going to continue to treat its characters like garbage. And pull for the shiny, pretty ones that we like the most. Signing off.